Okay, so we're back here with Laura Brand, our serial killer whisperer. And today, since a lot of people have been asking about more Bittaker, and we thought we'd dive into Bittaker again. And so what we were going to talk about today is that Laura has access, or was given, Laurence Bittaker's entire discovery files by Laurence Bittaker. In fact, he actually signed over power of attorney to Laura. And this has been a common practice with Laura, with a lot of the serial killers that she's been interviewing to try to get information to try to find the missing victims. And because if they die, then all that information goes away. And so she's basically they're allowing her to have access to all the discovery elements in their cases, which is huge. I mean, it doesn't really happen. I don't think it has happened. So, but
no.
So Laura, tell us a little bit about the conversation that you had with Laurence about doing this, because he was the first one that actually did it with, correct?
Yeah, he was the first one who, put me down as next of kin, gave me the discovery. And for people who aren't aware of what a discovery is, it's all the investigation files are taken and put into a discovery and presented to the district attorney. Now, these are sealed police files. Not even PIs can have access to them. You cannot get access to them at all. But by law, the offender is allowed a copy of their discovery, for the defense of their case. So that's how I obtain them, is by going to the offender and getting them, which is not an easy feat. A lot of the offenders don't even have their own discovery because their own attorneys don't trust them with them because of how, sacred these sealed police files are. They're even nervous. The attorneys are nervous to even give them to the offender. But Bittaker had his, and he gave it to me. And this is some of it, but you can see just how many pages. It's and how many hundreds of pages it is. And I had to go through it with a fine-tooth comb, and I made a list of 250 witnesses, and I had to track them all down. So this started back in 2018. So I went through the discovery, started tracking down the witnesses, doing my own investigation. And tonight, I'm going to show you guys the things that I found, which were very shocking. None of this was brought to court.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about that conversation you had with him to kind of convince him to give all that stuff to you. And where did he keep it? Was it in his cell?
It was in his cell, yeah. And then they have storage boxes in San Quentin. So they can actually tell a CO that they need that storage box of their court files or whatever. And the only documents he did not have was Lynette's autopsy report, which I needed. So he had to call his attorney, and his attorney was like, do not give it to her. But she gave it to him anyway, and he sent it over to me. But she didn't want to give it out to Bittaker because he was actually signing it Pliers Bittaker and sending it to murder memorabilia sellers. So she was scared. But then she was even more scared when he told her it was me, because she knew I was going to be digging into the case.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Even though he's convicted, his defense attorney is still in hopes that maybe something 100% can get him out?
Because the defense attorney definitely knew what was in this discovery.
And let's just be clear, we are never, ever allowing any of this stuff to be sold to murderabilia people or anything like that. That is completely unacceptable.
So. No. This is the first time I'm actually ever even going to be showing anything from the discovery. I keep it pretty tightly wrapped up. I don't allow anybody to see it, but tonight there is some things I want to present to you guys because it's very important that it's made public about the unknown victims of the case.
Okay. All right. So what are we going to look at first?
All right. Well, I had to go through this all again. Mm-hmm. Let me see. I'm going to start with, the first part of the discovery is Joe Jackson's interview. And if you guys have listened to past episodes, Joe Jackson said at the end of his interview, Paul Bynum, the lead detective, says to Joe, when I go to Bittaker and Norris, what are they going to tell me about you? And Joe answers, they're going to tell you about a Knott's Berry Farm murder. but I had nothing to do with it, which was really suspicious.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what's weird is the interview just ends there, just cuts off. But there's then the Knott's Berry Farm interview.
Meaning that the tape was stopped.
Yes, the tape was stopped. Yeah, right after Joe answered that question. I'm going to circle back to Knott's Berry, but let me see where my notes are. I'm going to skip to this part. This actually talks about Knott's Berry. Okay, so this is this interview was with Bittaker. It was made on January 28th, 1980. And it was made by ATF went in and interviewed him at Los Angeles County. I'm going to skip to the last page of it because you're going to find this part interesting.
And Paul Bynum, so sad. That's the one that
very sad.
Suicide.
Yeah.
After this case,
he took his own life. He had a 1-year-old daughter, but yeah, this. He talked about in his suicide note the screams of the girls in this case really traumatized him.
Horrible.
Okay, so this is Bittaker talking to ATF. Bittaker stated in approximately September of 1979, he was informed by Norris that Norris had a friend of his named Joe picked up a girl at Knott's Berry Farm. Bittaker further mentioned that Norris told him that while him and Joe were driving, they picked up a 16-year-old blonde hitchhiker. They drove to a side street. They beat her, raped her, and the beating caused her to die. When he finished the rape, however, this is talking about the necrophilia. However, in the process, he realized the girl was dead. They placed the girl in a dumpster near the area and drove away. So here's Bittaker talking about the Knott's Berry Farm murder, straight to investigators.
Yeah.
And then we have all the jailhouse.
And this is when he was already inside LA County Jail.
Yeah. He's saying straight to investigators.
Okay, and he's basically implicating this guy Joe Jackson.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Joe Jackson, to be clear, was never charged with anything and is still a free man.
Still a free man. I've spoken to him numerous times.
And does he still deny any kind of culpability in any killings?
Yeah. And after I talked to Joe, I called Tom Cray, who was Paul Bynum's partner, who was also the lead investigator on the case. And Tom had been out of work that day. I think it was his day off during that interview with Jackson when he first came in. And I was telling Tom, I was like, well, he mentions Knott's Berry Farm. And I'm looking over the evidence log, and here's Knott's Berry Farm tickets in Norris's closet. And then here's like 10 different inmates who came forward with the same story that Bittaker just told ATF. And I read this statement to Tom, and he goes, Laura, I had no knowledge about Knott's Berry. And I said to him, I go, could you call Hermosa, because the evidence was at Hermosa Beach Police Station, to get those tickets, but it had already been moved to the sheriff's department, which I've still been trying to get access to.
So the ATF did not confer with the police officer?
Well, I mean, it all ended up in the discovery. So, I mean, it's in the
no one followed up on it. No one followed up on it.
No.
Because their focus was Bittaker.
Yeah.
So they were.
But I mean, the 10 inmates who all gave reports and came forward, like Anthony Conejo, Carlo Douglas, who we've had on the show, they all gave statements saying Bittaker's talking about this Knott's Berry Farm, that they killed a girl. There was a third guy with them. So, I mean, it's the whole discovery is littered with bits and pieces of this Knott's Berry Farm.
I can't remember. Did Joe end up testifying against Bittaker?
He did. He did testify at the trial. Yeah.
Okay. So he probably cut some sort of deal.
Probably. It's not, I don't have any record of it in the discovery, but most likely. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There could have been definitely a deal cut because he was a serial rapist himself. And I pulled up some notes because I've been doing a lot of investigation into the names I've heard and the unknowns on this case. This is her. So I've been looking for any girl that has matched this description, who this could be. All I have is Knott's Berry Farm, and she worked close by, possibly, and she was wearing some type of uniform, either a waitress's uniform or a nurse's uniform. So the only one I've literally gone state to state through every database trying to find who these girls could be. This is my front runner for Knott's Berry Farm, possibly. Young, blonde, missing out of Texas, in her family states that she had moved to California a month ago. And her boyfriend sent her a plane ticket to come back to Texas. Never showed. She was a known hitchhiker. Lisa's family said all they knew was she was working as a waitress in California.
Was it in the area of California? Was it in Southern California or just in California?
What's so bad about these databases, especially a lot of them, is they don't have a lot of info on them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's like literally a paragraph. That's it.
Sure.
So yeah, that's all I have is reported missing by the sister, hair color, weight, was working as a waitress. So the next thing that I've been doing is I'll call the police departments and, the missing persons and try to find any investigator who's been working on the case, or if they could put me in contact with the family to get more information.
Yeah. There's no next of kin in there?
Just sister.
But does it have an information, like a name?
No.
No, because they don't know who the victim is.
Okay.
She's looking at the missing person.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the missing persons report.
Yeah, they don't know
who filed the missing person place. Who
filed
sister. Okay,
the sister.
But there's no name. There's no name.
No.
Wow.
No. So now what I have to do is, that's the next step. Always is I call the police departments and try to get in touch with the family somehow.
And they found this girl near Knott's Berry Farm.
I mean, we don't know. She's just missing.
No, last believed, but the victim, that the unidentified victim was found near Knott's Berry Farm.
No.
Yeah.
What, she was found?
Well, so that's all the reports. She was taken outside Knott's Berry Farm.
She was taken out, but they haven't found her body.
No.
Okay, so they didn't have a body. All they do is have a report of someone's missing. The family reported that someone was missing during that time, and that she was from Texas. She moved to Southern California.
Well,
she may not be our victim. She may not be the Knott's Berry Farm.
No, I know, but I'm just saying.
She's my front runner because she matches the month, the year, and she was working as a waitress in Southern California.
So basically, Bittaker told you there's another victim, but he didn't tell you where her body's located. He just said there was another victim around Knott's Berry Farm that she was taken.
Right, and she was never recovered from the dumpster.
Okay, and did he describe what she looked like?
Young, 18. He said 18. This report he put 16, but so we're thinking probably young, early teens, approximatally.
The photos that he took of these girls,
they're buried. I mean, we have the buried location. Yeah, that's why we really got to find that too. And that was
just remind listeners what that is real quick again.
So Bittaker got tipped off when Norris was arrested by Norris's sister. So he knew, so he cleared out his motel in the van. He drove to a location and he buried it. And he actually buried in a couple different spots, but the main stash was never recovered. Bittaker gave me this location. We're still actively looking for it. Rob went over there the other day, actually, scouting in the area.
Oh, he did? Over near, where is it?
Don't say where.
Yeah. Inside of this stash is more audio tapes, more photographs, jewelry of the victims, pretty much, just a serial killer's trophies, everything. And one of the witnesses who testified in court, who lived next door to Bittaker and was very close with Bittaker, stated she heard a screen tape with 12 to 13 different girls screaming. Oh. So he would tape a scream from one girl, the tape would click off, come back on. So really, he was taking a trophy of their screams on this audio tape, which is classic Bittaker. I mean, that's what got him off. This is an anger excitation offender that we're dealing with, a sadist, and him and Norris both had sadistic personality disorder. So we know there's a tape out there with 12 to 13 girls. And that was another thing stated to ATF too, is Bittaker says to write to the ATF that Norris had killed 13 girls before this crime spree. I don't know whether that's true or not. Bittaker did tell me when he got out of CMC, he did go back to Colorado, and we know he raped a girl on the way back from Colorado to California. But Bittaker always talked about some girl on horseback in Colorado that Norris had killed.
Yeah.
And
it's interesting when you talk about the screams and stuff like that, because when I remember seeing a video of him on the stand, and he said that he would like to record them just to talk like pillow talk and like dirty talk.
Pillow talk.
And I'm sorry, but screaming is not anything like
pillow
that.
talk. Yeah.
What is sadistic personality disorder?
So it's a person who derives pain, derives pleasure from inflicting pain, and it can be sexually, physically, psychologically. And I'm going to get to. I'm going to show one
try
picture.
to stay away from the really graphic descriptions.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
You know what? Maybe I shouldn't show this picture then. There was a picture.
We don't want them screenshotting it and then trying to sell it.
Exactly.
Yeah, true. There is a picture that was drawn on a cell wall of Los Angeles County Jail, and it was Bittaker's cellmate. And Bittaker had told the guy who was drawing it that it looked like a girl named Cherry, that he had killed, a hitchhiker, and he had cut off her feet, and he drew the picture with like her feet chopped off. So when I started digging, I didn't think I thought Cherry, that's got to be a nickname, or something. There's no way. I just kept thinking that, but I still went state to state. Just, leave no stone unturned type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually got a hit.
Wow.
Let me see. I know. I was
I can't
extremely
imagine
shocked.
how many names you got to go through.
You really got to go state by state, because you just don't know, if they're from another state, especially Los Angeles. Like, so many people are coming from out of town.
Right.
There's just so many transplants.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Oh, here she is. Okay. So Cherry Ann Greenman, she was missing from it's June 14th, 1976. She had just gotten out of a county jail, and she was reported by family that she was heading south. And we know what California is south of Washington, where she was from. She was a known hitchhiker. It states on here.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But after she left the county jail in 1976, presumed to be heading south, she was never heard from again. She's described as a free spirit who frequently hitchhiked from state to state, but she did keep in contact with her family. Her case remains unsolved. So there is a Cherry.
There is a Cherry. Okay.
And
There is a Cherry.
1976.
1976. Yeah.
Working.
Well, it was 79, but if she was headed south to California.
Yeah. Was she in the Seattle area?
Does it say?
I'm asking because Cherry was on a list with Gary Ridgway.
There was a Cherry.
There was a Cherry that was.
Oh, really? King County Sheriff's Office?
Yeah.
That's Seattle.
Gary Ridgway area.
You think she's one of Gary's?
She might be.
She could be. She fits the profile.
Cherry was on the list for sure. I'll have to dig out my files and find out.
Yeah.
What we have on that, but yeah,
it's so hard with like the hitchhikers and the runaways.
Well, yeah, because they're, that's why they pick those girls.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And that was his MO too. He like
Absolutely.
prostitutes and hitchhikers, young girls.
Young
Yep.
girls mostly were runaways. You know,
Yep.
that's or ones that were, you know, looking for fame or.
Those are the ones.
Yeah.
Now, let me see this one.
What was the when you're going through that again? What was like, or the first time? What was the most shocking thing that kind of stood out to you? That kind of taught you more about Bittaker when you said, and like, you know, and when did you discover it? Did you discover it while he was still alive or after he passed on?
Yeah, a lot of this was like when he was alive. So I had contacted Robin Roe Beck, the survivor, Stephen Kay, the DA, Carlo Douglas. He was not happy when I found Carlo Douglas. But yeah, I was actively looking into everything when he was still alive. I actually painted cherries on my nails for an interview when I went in, just as like a subliminal cue to see if he would remark on it. And because he always looked at my nails, that was the thing he always did.
Mhm.
So when I did have the cherries, he goes, "Oh, I know a girl named Cherry," and started laughing.
Wow.
And I've used this technique actually every time I've gone in. I use the nails to put something subliminal, see if they pick up on it, just to see. And it does work. So I have another girl. Her name is Judy Lynn Smithson. Now, the reason she's 21 years old, she stood out to me because Bittaker and Norris had both told me that they had taken a girl with a broken down car in a gray Cadillac. Now, in this description, she was last seen in California. She had a gray Cadillac.
Oh.
She disappeared. It's October 1st, 1979. And then I checked on the map of where she was last seen. It's 2 miles from the Scott Motel.
Whoa.
Oh.
Yep.
Does she have any family members?
Yeah,
around?
she's ironically also a girl from Texas.
Wow.
Yeah.
Have you reached out to that family yet?
You know, every time I call, you know, the missing persons or the police, I get ghosted by the detectives so often, or they'll put me on hold, or they'll ping pong me. It's so hard.
Where in
just to
Texas?
get.
Where in Texas?
She is in. Where's her Texas part? Oh, it doesn't have anything for Texas because they have her listed for Northern Hollywood,
Got
Los
it.
Angeles. But I have in my notes, I tracked her to Texas.
Okay. All right. Well, just let us know when you find out who's, because we can figure it out and stuff like that.
Yeah, I'll send you all the notes on everything I found.
Yeah.
And then there was
what was her name again?
Judy.
Judy?
Yeah.
That's
Judy.
all you have is Judy?
Oh no, Judy Lynn Smithson.
Judy Lee Smithson. So if any of our listeners or anybody who knows anybody by that name from that time period,
contact us.
Contact us.
So,
and what was the date?
1979.
October 1st, 1979.
If you're a family member or know the family, please reach out to us.
Yeah. And this one came up. It's really sad. Let me see where can I find her. Now there was a ton of mentions of a girl killed New Year's Eve. So it'd be, I guess, you know, January 1st of 1979. Norris was not out yet, but Bittaker had been out for months. Where is she?
From CMC.
And yeah, Bittaker got out first. It was her.
And what year is this? 78?
78, 79, because it was New Year's Eve when she is
so he's
reported missing, and in the discovery, this mention of the girl was New Year's Eve. She was killed.
Was her body found?
No, she's just listed as a missing person. Where is she?
So he was fresh out. If this was one of his victims, fresh out of
Out,
prison,
yeah.
and he's already.
I mean, Norris raped the girl coming back from Colorado. I think it was less than a month out of prison. Yeah.
So that's just, they can't control themselves.
No, I mean they're back hunting. So this one, here's what I always state about Bittaker and Norris. See, Norris was kind of the picky one. Like he wanted the blonde hair, blue eyes, and that was Bittaker's preference. But Bittaker was just a hunter. Like he would kill anything. Like if there was a victim of opportunity, he would go for it. And so this victim doesn't fit their typical MO. But what stood out to me about her, she's 27 years old. This is Christina Perdoni. What really stood out to me is where she was taken, which was downtown LA, and where Bittaker didn't move into the Scott Motel until a little bit later. He was actually living in the Alexandria Hotel in downtown.
And that's a notorious hotel there.
Very notorious hotel. Yeah. And she was taken, New Year's Eve, downtown, right where he was.
Mm-hmm. Did he tell you about her, or is this something you're just trying to connect?
This is someone I'm trying to connect. I mean, there's mentions.
Did you discover this stuff while he was still alive and ask him about it?
No, she came later. I did. I had Judy, I had Knott's Berry while he was alive and I questioned him about. She came later in the discovery when I saw these accounts of the New Year's Eve murder. And then there was another murder, a Palos Verdes murder. A lot of documented accounts of Bittaker doing this solely. I have nothing to go on for this girl, unfortunately. She was put into trash bags and Bittaker stabbed her all over her body. So sharks would, or see life, and he threw her off of the cliffs of Palos Verdes.
Mm-hmm.
And that was one of Bittaker's favorite spots.
Yeah. And he told you about this one?
He didn't, this one, the New Year's Eve or the Palos Verdes?
The Palos Verdes one.
He did tell me that, like, if you do stab the body, I remember him talking about that, and put it in the ocean, it'll make the sharks come.
Okay, so.
Oh. Well, he really thought about every way to get rid of these poor girls.
Every way. Every way.
I mean, how many do you think that there were victims? How many victims do you think?
Okay, so we know from the witness that there were at least, and this is just 79. Now, he told me his first kill was, he was approximately 17, 18 at the time. He's in and out of jail, but it's hard to say because even him being in and out of jail, that's still a 20-year time span until he's arrested for these 5, right? That's a pretty significant amount of time. And not only that, he drove cross country to Louisiana during some of that time too. So now we're crossing states as well. In these reports, a lot of the cellmates he talked to, the numbers that keep coming up is 27, 28, and 29. So late 20s. And he would never give me the exact number when I talked to him. It's going to sound so weird, but he used to say to me, because, at the time we had just started doing the Toolbox Killer, the show, I was writing the book, and he had said, he's like, I don't want to give you the actual number. And I was like, I don't understand. Like, we're already doing this. Just give me the real number. And he said, well, everyone's going to look at me as a monster. And I was like, everybody already looks at you.
You're already a monster.
You're already a monster. Like, people look at you as the devil. And I said to him, I go, Larry, you can actually have some redemption if you actually give the real number and some information to help us find them. Like, do something good before you leave this world.
Yeah. What was his reaction when you said that? He said he was that everybody already knows that you're a monster. This
was a conversation we had literally 2 years straight. Because every time, like, he would like go, oh, but everyone's gonna think I'm a monster. It was like this deep insecurity, and it was like totally contradictory of some, like, I don't know. It was weird. It was like he had no self-realization. Or almost like he thought just having 5 was better than the total number. And he said, well, he was like, if the real number comes out, then I'm going to be like regarded as like a Ted Bundy. And I don't want to be like that level.
Guess what? You are.
He is. Yeah. And this is what we have so far to prove to go back and do it. And then there was one time he said to me, he was like, Laura, I would give you names, but he goes, I don't even know them. I don't know their names.
That's even more.
Well, that makes sense.
So how many do you think there were?
You said like
I
20.
think that if you look at, I'm looking at this as like a criminologist. Okay. So we know he told me he started from 1718, 20-year time span. And we know him and Norris. I mean, some of the murders were 2 weeks. I mean, they're going through the 7 phases the serial goes through the cycle pretty quickly. I would say that number could be very realistic of 27, 28, 29.
Over like a 2-year period, it sounds like, or at least, or maybe even further.
It's really hard to say.
Yeah.
It's so hard to say.
Many girls.
There's just so many.
And how many girls were identified?
Well, all we have are the 5 known, because those were the only ones originally really investigated.
Right.
At the time, you know?
So we're looking at maybe 25 girls that are still out there.
Yeah.
That nobody knows where they are.
I even have some, that's actually the next part I'm going to talk about too, because there's actually physical evidence found of other victims.
Oh.
So here, why did I put the note here? Oh, here he's talking about Bittaker again. He's talking about Knott's Dairy Farm. And Gretchen. So they asked him about Gretchen, and Bittaker said he had seen her at a gas station on Glen Oaks Boulevard in Burbank. Bittaker described this gas station as a state gas station that he normally went to. He wrote down the license plate, and through a friend determined that the vehicle was registered to the Scientology Training Center in Glendale. Bittaker said that Gretchen was driving a turquoise Volkswagen. And I have a license plate, and Rob and I have tried to find this license plate, but the DMV records don't go that far back.
I know.
So
we have one we're looking for too from like the 1960s. It's really
and
hard.
I've even, you're gonna think I'm crazy, but I actually contacted the Church of Scientology trying to look into this girl.
Oh, they're not going to give you any information.
They didn't even know. Stone
no
cold.
way.
Gretchen was an attractive girl in her late teens. Then it talks about how him and Norris actually went into the Church of Scientology and put up recording devices in the Church of Scientology and hacked the phone lines trying to get her address.
This is very elaborate for this one.
Yeah, I remember you.
That's why I'm like, there's no way. And then when I talked to Jason Spence, the PI, who worked Bittaker's case, he said to Garber. So Garber was Bittaker's defense attorney. He said, "Do you want me to look into Gretchen?" And Garber said, "Do not look into Gretchen."
Because they would have found her.
Exactly. So, and then I also brought this up to Carlo. Carlo goes, "Wait a minute, Glendale." He goes, "I remember him talking about taking and killing a girl in that area, right by the Church of Scientology." And I was like, "That's got to be Gretchen." Mm-hmm.
Oh, her poor family.
And then we have another girl mentioned by, all I have is a first name, Margaret.
And that's it. You don't have any other info?
No other info. I have a Colleen, a Margaret, a Joy, and there's another one. And they're all just first names. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if anyone's listening and has a friend or a family member by any of those names that went missing, please.
From any state, yeah, because they could have been traveling. Mm-hmm. But here's
likely she's probably not from LA.
Yeah. And this is okay, so here's where there's actual physical evidence of more victims. Where is it? Okay, so here it was. It was on Olive Avenue in Burbank. This was at Mr. Riley. So this is the manager at a community Chevrolet. Olive Avenue, Burbank. Mr. Riley stated that suspect BITTAKER LAURENCE, he had bought his van, California license plate, but on 3 different occasions, he came and rented a car, leased a car. Two of the times he had records. One was on August 5th, 1979, and the other time was on 11/19/79. It states the mileage. So I did run the mileage through maps, Google Maps, and it does match to the mountains and back. And on these cars. On August 6th, 79, he leased a 1979 Camaro, beige in color, California license plate. He returned it the next day. Mileage. Then he leased a Chevrolet Love, LUV, license plate. Same with the mileage again. Same exact mileage.
And that matches the distance from Burbank
from
to
the mountains and back. But this
which
this
mountains are we talking about?
San Gabriel to the fire roads to Burbank and
where
the ones
we were the other day.
the ones, yeah.
We should talk a little bit about that too.
We should. So this is a search. So they right after he had this Camaro, there were 2 reddish brown hairs and a piece of yellow gold hair clips and duct tape in the trunk.
That they left in the car.
That was left in the car, in the trunk of the car. Duct tape, hair clips, and reddish brown hair. Yeah. Now I want to go into the list of all of the partial skeletal remains that I found off of these fire roads that are not Cindy and Andrea. That could be his other victims.
Well, let's just but before you do that, let's just talk a little bit about, because we got actually firsthand look at these fire roads and the 2 places where Cindy and Andrea, and who else were we up there for? Was Cindy and Andrea when we went up there last week? Was it just Cindy and Andrea? It was
just Cindy and Andrea. But yeah, of course, I believe it is a body farm up there.
Yeah. And what was interesting is that it's really friggin' high up there in the San Gabriel Mountains. And, then the fire roads, the beginning of them are blocked and locked, because they are, and they were, again, they were probably blocked and locked then too, but they cut the lock off and put their own lock on there so they would have access to it. But it's like not easy to get to. And it's and if anybody has ever hiked up there, we saw a few hikers, but it's like there's a fire road and then it's like this on either side. So it just drops down. So it's like if you fall off down there, we're talking at least, I don't know, like a 500 feet where it's straight down and it's just filled with brush and stuff like that. So they could just disappear there. Now we were up there doing something with some beta testing on some soil to try to locate some DNA, but it was really kind of brought home like the level of like we're looking down there. I mean, the retired police officer who was doing the soil sampling, he has to come back because it was just he was going to walk down there and there was no way he could get down there and like by that. So he's coming back in October with cadaver dogs and some rope. And he took some samples, so hopefully we can find out if there's any DNA over there. But it was really, it was creepy, and it was just like it literally is. I mean, those guys are very smart. It's the perfect place to dump a body.
It is. It's the first time I was up there a couple of years ago. I remember thinking the same thing, like seeing it, like you're just in these remote mountains, and all I could think was like, oh my God, like you get taken up there. By 2 psychos. Oh my God.
No one's going to hear you. No one's going to see
you. No one's going to hear you.
No one even drove by. I mean, this is now where it's more populated. And still, we saw maybe 2 cars, but I can't even imagine like 1979. There's probably nobody.
There was nobody. Like now some people hike up there, but back then there was nobody.
It's so dark at night. There's not one street light. There's nothing.
And then what was really creepy is that we were walking through the brush right in the area where you described it because we had you on the phone and we had the map and you were pointing us in the direction and we were in the right location. And then we come over this little brush area and there's like a bottle of lube, like lubrication, that you would use for sex. That's like sitting there just on the ground, like half open. And we all kind of initially made a joke about it, but then
I was freaked out.
And
Me
then
and our development executive was with us, and she was freaked out too. We were like, "What the hell is this doing up here?"
Yeah,
Rob called me and he kept saying to me, he was almost like panicked, and he kept saying to me, he was like, "Laura, who knows this location? Who knows it?" And I was like, "Rob, nobody. Like, nobody knows where," because it was Andrea, where Andrea was killed. I was like, "Nobody knows this placement." And I was like, "Why do you keep asking me?" And he's like, "There's a bottle of lube," and he was just like, it's like somebody who would go back there to relive the crimes.
Mm-hmm.
And then I said, "Oh my God, Rob, Cindy just sent me an article a couple of weeks ago. Do you remember that article about the guy?
With the guy who was a copycat. It was a
The copycat with the rape dungeon, taking girls in San Gabriel. Yeah.
Yeah. So we had the police officer. I mean, he was like the ex-police officer, retired, after he had taken the soil samples, because he has to kind of put gloves on and ammonia. He has to do, because he has to keep everything kind of sterile. He bagged and tagged that bottle of lube, and then to tell people what Rob found out right after that, like a couple days later.
Oh, I don't.
We told him about the copycat.
No. There was another report of something recently that happened. Or is that the same?
Different report? From this copycat
That's the
guy?
same report.
No. That's what we told
So
him.
we're actually gonna send it over. I think they have it. Rob has it, and he's gonna send it over to. I think did he already contact the police department in that area?
I think he did. Yeah.
So to double check to see if it could have been part of any sort of crime or rape. I mean, because why would you have that up there? I mean, it's so like
bizarre.
It's so remote.
There. I mean, really nothing. It was a scary thing.
Well, the name of Andrea's fire road is stated someplace.
Mm-hmm.
The exact location he gave me isn't out there, but that fire road is talked about even in the Toolbox Killer. And I said to Rob, I go, I mean, if somebody really was a copycat, they could have gone to that road and just maybe even happened onto the same spot. It's just so creepy.
Yeah, it's a pretty long fire road though, and it's really hard to get to.
It is. It's out of the way. It's not.
And you can't drive on it now because now they have, not only do they have a lock on it, but they put like this plate on top of it, so you can't cut it off. So it's like impossible to get off. You have to actually have the tools in order to do it.
They did that because of Bittaker and Norris.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just
but it's
stay
so
away from vans.
I mean, it's so remote. It's remote, but it's also close. You drive up, we're talking like, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes going up these hills, these winding roads, and then it just ends, and then the fire road starts. But it's like within 20, 30 minutes, you could scream, no one would hear you.
No one's gonna hear you.
No one's gonna, it's like it's crazy.
It's really terrifying.
It is. I mean, I can't even imagine being up there. I've been up there at night. Just being up there at night is terrifying.
Oh my God. There's no lights. There's nothing.
Nothing.
Nope.
Nothing.
It is very scary.
It is.
And it's sad because it's such a beautiful place.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
Yeah.
But like I said before, perfect dumping ground.
Ugh. Well, let's not get any ideas.
Well, I mean, just he figured that out. In Palos Verdes, he used the ocean.
I know, but there's a lot of thought into this stuff. That's why I understand. While you were talking to him for so long, was this just like constant like rumination about this stuff over and over? And like, what was his brain doing? Just over and over thinking about how to take these girls and hunt them and dispose of them? I mean, this is just so elaborate, and some of these.
I actually said to him, I go, Larry, I've never seen anything so elaborate. Like, just from the van itself. I mean, he had the locks, like the back, the front. Like you were in that van, you couldn't get out.
That's what I'm saying.
But not only that, it was also tricked out to. They were tricking it out to explode if they ever got caught in a forensic team or somebody was going to go in, it would explode. They never did that, but Larry put an oil rig. So like, say the cops were chasing them, oil would spill out the back. They had it rigged for that. Yeah. Like, they had a phone system So when he took Andrea, Norris was hiding under the bed. There was a phone system from under the bed up there, and he was like, Norris would call and Bittaker would answer, and if he said, oh yeah, she's cute or something like that, that meant go ahead, let's take her, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was their signal to one another. So they had a phone from the back of the van, him under the bed to the front. They had the makeshift bed. I mean, you wouldn't believe, I have a whole, like 2 pages filled of everything they did to this van just to, make it into this rape dungeon on wheels to take up there. And Bittaker had found these mountain roads when he was about 16. He went to Youth Authority. In Youth Authority, which is like, juvie, yep. They take them up there and they had them fight fires. So those kids out there learned every single fire road. That's how Bittaker knew these mountains like the back of his hand. And funny enough, there's been a lot of serial killers who actually did the same thing. Edmund Kemper was in Youth Authority. Shootman, who's a part of this case, we'll get into Shootman in another episode, but also Youth Authority. I think Rademacher, who I've been talking to, Youth Authority.
Well, that's interesting. So let's say, let's go back. So they start young. The signs are there very young.
Mm-hmm. So that's where Bittaker said the fantasy started when he was up, he was a teenager up on those fire roads. He kept thinking, oh, I could take a victim here. Nobody would know. No one's going to hear anything. Look at these fire roads. Oh, you just cut the lock off and now you have your own private access road right there.
So that's where we need to think about for the future when you see signs so young. There's something wrong.
Yeah.
It starts young. The fantasies will start around the teenage years. But most paraphilias, develop around age 6, age 7. And a lot of serial offenders have reported to me they saw a violent image at that young age of 6 or 7. Their first sexual image was violent.
Wow.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's interesting, though. I didn't know he was in Youth Authority and then he was up there. So he had access. He knew those roads really well. He knew, and he just kind of planted that seed in his head for when he needed it later on.
Right. And what's even scarier, if you went up on Andrea's Road, you know what I'm talking about. So I went up there at night because he had told me what he would do. He would go to the highest elevation of that road. And so I did that at night. You could see the headlights of the cars coming all the way from that starting point. So he would have 20 minutes to see any headlights coming up or coming from behind, anything. He knew to go to the highest elevation on those mountain roads. Yeah.
He was a smart fucker.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So terrifying. All right. So if anyone knows any of those names of any of those girls who went missing, please contact
Right.
me.
Yeah.
Yeah. But what I was going to say is the red hair in the trunk of this car he leased. So there are 4 sets of skeletal remains found off of those roads. They are not Cindy. They are not Andrea. They are all teenage females. One of them was found a partial skull with red hair.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
When was that?
Yeah. That was discovered. Let's see, hold up. You see how many reports I have because I'm like constantly scrolling.
Yeah.
It's unreal. They were all found, most of them, I should say, by maintenance workers, typically near drainage runoffs from those canyons.
Got it.
But they weren't identified, or they were identified?
No, these are all unknowns.
Unknowns.
What's the dates? Did it say when the dates were they were found?
They're all like approximately late 70s. They fit the time frame. Approximately teenage, early 20s. You're talking about like, skeletal remains, like I'm only partial, so it's hard to determine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's really hard with different bones. Like our collarbone, that's like our last bone that finishes developing.
Mm-hmm.
That grows until we're 28. So, you think about it, you're just getting like a rib bone, partial skull. the medical examiner can only do so much to do like a rough age range for them.
Yeah, no, it's difficult. And then plus you have all animals up there. That's the thing I was thinking of, like,
right.
They're tossing those bodies, Cynthia and Andrea, down there, and that I'm sure animals, take them, and transport them.
It's
and
horrible. So those skeletal remains, do they have them?
They have them. Yeah. I've been emailing, actually. It's funny because this happened with Wayne's victim. Wayne Ford wanted me to identify. Well, you guys know, you were there when he was saying she has a sister, find her. I started calling, and I work with these amazing genealogists, the Redgraves. They're amazing. And they've just identified, I think it was like a year ago, somebody over 100 years old. But I had started their genealogy program with them, and we had called over to, for Wayne's case, for the first victim. We started emailing, calling, and then we started doing it for my Rancho Jane Doe. So this girl from Rancho Cucamonga, she was taken 2 weeks before Cindy Schaefer in June, approximately 15, they said. And she had blood coming out of her ear. Something had punctured her ear, and she was badly beaten. And I've always said that's very close to San Gabriel.
Yeah.
And it was just, she was just tossed in a field. And I said, I bet more than anything, that is definitely Bittaker's. The beating, the puncture to the ear. So I started calling, the medical examiner. Everybody, we were sending emails. The Redgraves did too. We just started making the calls, the emails, hounding. And then Wayne Ford's first victim was identified. And now recently, Rancho Cucamonga has just been identified after 44 years.
They identified the actual who it is?
Yeah. She was a girl from Pennsylvania.
Out here visiting?
I
Was
think
she out here living, or?
I think living out here. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, those genealogists you work with are amazing.
They're incredible. Yeah.
I would love to interview them. They are.
Yeah. But it seems like every time I get on the phone and we start making the calls, the emails, magically these girls get identified.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's good they get identified.
Thank God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Families have something.
I know.
So tragic.
All right. Well, listen, thanks for staying up late for us and going through all this stuff. Like Cindy said, if any of these names sound familiar to you, I know it's a big reach. So much time has passed, but if something clicks, please reach out to us on our website. And if you have people that are missing that were during that period of time that could possibly fit these MOs for Bittaker and Norris, also reach out to us, because you still got files of people that you're still going through, correct?
Yeah. Even if you just think, contact us.
Yeah.
So we can dig a little deeper into it and hopefully, find out these unknowns.
So next week we'll have some recordings of Bittaker that we'll go over, because there's some interesting
Yeah. And then we're gonna probably post some of the videos we shot up at that location when we did the soil samples with Rob Dick and was Steve, right? Steve, I can't remember Steve's last name.
Steve.
Yeah, and he was a very interesting guy, and he has a very interesting background, and he does all this. He created a nonprofit to kind of help this, so pretty cool. And the technology, hopefully it works out pretty good and can really kind of be a game changer. So we were like, this was the first test, and we'll go into more detail of what that technology is and how they can identify DNA in the soil and stuff like that. So pretty amazing stuff.
It's incredible. Yeah.
All right, Laura. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, guys.
All right, cool. We'll see you soon. Bye.